The man who was rejected until he created a universe. What if I told you? The man who created some of the world's greatest superheroes almost gave up on his own life. Not because he lacked talent, not because he lacked dreams, but because the world kept telling him, "You'll never become anything." Imagine waking up every morning, going to a job you secretly hate, watching everyone around you chase bigger dreams while yours slowly disappear. Every single day feels exactly the same. Bills, stress, doubt, and a tiny voice inside your head asking, "What if this is all my life will ever be?" That was Stan Lee. Long before Spider-Man, long before Iron Man, long before Marvel became a billion-dollar empire, there was simply a man sitting in a tiny office writing stories that almost nobody cared about. His friends were moving on. Other writers were becoming famous. Publishers rejected ideas again and again. People laughed at comic books. Many believed comics were only for children. And every rejection whispered the same sentence: quit. For years, Stan wondered if everyone was right. Maybe he wasn't talented enough. Maybe success belonged to someone else. Maybe dreams had an expiration date. If you've ever felt left behind, if you've ever watched someone else achieve the dream you wanted, if you've ever questioned your own future, then this story isn't really about Stan Lee, it's about you. Because the biggest hero Stan Lee ever created wasn't Spider-Man, it wasn't Iron Man, it wasn't Captain America. It was the ordinary person who refuses to quit. And before this story ends, you'll discover the decision that changed not only Stan Lee's life, but the entire entertainment industry forever.
Stan Lee wasn't born into success. He wasn't born with connections. He wasn't born with money. He was born during one of the hardest economic periods in American history. His family struggled to survive. There were days when even simple meals felt like a luxury. As a young boy, Stan escaped reality the only way he knew: books, stories, and imagination. While other children played outside, Stan spent hours reading adventure novels, dreaming of worlds where ordinary people could become extraordinary. Deep inside, he believed stories could change lives. But believing and making a living were two completely different things. At just 17 years old, Stan accepted a small job in a comic book company. Not as a famous writer, not as an editor, not even as an artist. His first responsibilities were unbelievably simple: refilling ink bottles, bringing lunch for other employees, proofreading pages, cleaning the office. The kind of work nobody notices. The kind of work many people complain about. But Stan didn't. Because while everyone else saw a tiny job, he saw a tiny opportunity. Every single day, he quietly observed professional writers. He watched artists sketch incredible characters. He learned how stories were built, one page at a time, one sentence at a time, one mistake at a time. Years passed. Slowly, he was given chances to write small stories. Nothing special, nothing unforgettable, just another comic among hundreds of others. But something inside him kept whispering, "Keep learning, keep writing. Your moment hasn't arrived yet." Most people think success begins with a big opportunity. They're wrong. Success usually begins with invisible preparation, the hours nobody applauds, the effort nobody sees, the sacrifices nobody remembers. Stan Lee had no idea that every boring task, every frustrating day, every small assignment was secretly preparing him for the biggest breakthrough of his life. But before that breakthrough arrived, something happened. Something that almost made him walk away from comics forever. And if that decision had gone differently, Spider-Man, the Avengers, the X-Men, and the Marvel Universe might never have existed.
The years went by. Stan kept writing, issue after issue, story after story, but nothing truly changed. The comic book industry was struggling. Sales were falling. Readers were losing interest. Publishers wanted the same predictable heroes, perfect, fearless, always winning. But Stan felt something was missing. Real people aren't perfect. Real people feel fear. They fail. They doubt themselves. They make mistakes. Yet every time Stan suggested creating heroes who looked and felt like ordinary people, the answer was almost always the same. That's not what readers want. Don't change the formula. Just keep doing what works. Imagine hearing that, not once, not twice, but for years. Slowly, the excitement inside him began to disappear. Writing no longer felt like a dream. It felt like a job that drained his creativity. Every morning he walked into the office wondering if today would finally be the day he quit. At home, he seriously considered leaving comics forever. Maybe he could find another career. Maybe writing simply wasn't meant for him. Maybe everyone who doubted him had been right all along. For the first time, the dream that had kept him alive since childhood was fading away. Then, one evening, his wife Joan noticed something. She looked at Stan and saw a man who wasn't tired because he worked too much. He was tired because he had stopped believing in himself. She quietly asked him one simple question. If you're going to quit anyway, why not write the story you've always wanted to write? That question changed everything. No pressure, no expectations, no fear of failure. If this was going to be his final comic, why not make it honest? Why not create heroes who argued, who failed, who felt lonely, who struggled to pay bills, who made mistakes just like everyone else? For the first time in years, Stan stopped writing for publishers. He stopped writing for critics. He stopped writing to please everyone. He started writing the story he believed in. He had no idea that this single decision would transform not only his own life, but the future of entertainment forever. And the first step toward that revolution was a team of heroes unlike anything the world had ever seen.
Stan Lee walked into the office with a decision already made. If this comic failed, he was done. No more second chances, no more trying to fit into someone else's expectations. This would be the last story he ever wrote. Instead of creating another perfect superhero, Stan did something that sounded almost crazy. He created heroes who argued with each other, who made mistakes, who felt jealous, who doubted themselves. Heroes who looked more like real families than legendary warriors. That comic became the Fantastic Four. At first, nobody knew what would happen. Would readers reject these flawed heroes, or would they finally see themselves inside the story? The answer came faster than anyone expected. Sales exploded. Letters poured into Marvel's office. Readers weren't just reading the comic, they were emotionally connected to it. For the first time, superheroes felt human. They weren't perfect, and that's exactly why people loved them. That success shocked the entire comic book industry. Publishers who once believed Stan's ideas would fail suddenly wanted more, much more. But Stan wasn't interested in copying his first success. He asked himself another question. If ordinary people became superheroes, what would their lives actually look like? That idea gave birth to an idea that almost everyone thought was ridiculous.
A teenage boy, not a billionaire, not a soldier, not a god. Just an awkward teenager who worried about homework, bullies, money, and responsibility. Many people inside the company laughed. Teenagers don't sell comics. No one wants a superhero who has personal problems. This idea will fail. Stan had heard those words before, for years. But this time, he refused to listen, because he had finally learned something powerful. The world will always question your vision before it celebrates it. If you wait for everyone's approval, you'll never create anything unforgettable. So Stan trusted his instincts, even when almost nobody else did. And within months, the world would meet a young hero who would become one of the most beloved characters in history. His name was
Spider-Man wasn't supposed to become a legend. In fact, many people believed he would fail before readers even gave him a chance. A teenage superhero? Too young, too awkward, too emotional. Publishers insisted that readers wanted powerful heroes, not insecure teenagers who worried about school, money, and everyday life. But Stan Lee believed something different. He believed that people don't fall in love with perfection. They fall in love with honesty. So Peter Parker wasn't rich. He wasn't confident. He wasn't fearless. He was a young man trying to survive life, just like millions of people around the world. Then Stan added one sentence, a sentence that would live forever. With great power comes great responsibility. It wasn't just a line in a comic book. It was a philosophy, a reminder that real strength isn't about having power. It's about choosing to do the right thing, even when it's difficult. When Spider-Man was finally released, something incredible happened. Readers saw themselves in him. Students understood him. Parents respected him. Teenagers admired him. Adults connected with his struggles. For the first time, a superhero didn't feel unreachable. He felt real. Sales skyrocketed. Marvel's offices were flooded with letters. Fans weren't simply asking for another comic. They were asking for more stories, more characters, more hope. And Stan Lee delivered. One after another, he helped create heroes that were different from anything the world had seen. The Incredible Hulk, a man fighting the monster inside himself. The X-Men, people rejected simply because they were different. Iron Man, a genius trapped by his own mistakes. Doctor Strange, a man who lost everything before discovering his true purpose. Each hero represented something deeper than action: fear, failure, responsibility, loss, hope. Stan wasn't just creating superheroes anymore. He was creating mirrors where millions of people could see their own struggles. But success brings something unexpected. The higher you climb, the louder the criticism becomes. And soon, Stan Lee would face a challenge that no superhero could solve with strength alone.
Success had finally arrived. The same industry that once ignored Stan Lee now wanted his ideas. The same people who doubted him now praised his imagination. Marvel was growing faster than anyone had expected. New heroes were becoming household names. Readers around the world couldn't wait for the next issue. From the outside, it looked like Stan Lee had finally reached the top, But success has a side that very few people ever see. More success means more pressure, more expectations, more responsibility. Every new comic carried one difficult question: can you do it again? When people expect greatness from you, average is no longer enough. Every new character had to be better than the last. Every story had to inspire millions, and every decision carried enormous risk. Some critics began saying, "Stan Lee has run out of ideas. Marvel's best days are over. The magic won't last." Those words could have broken him. Instead, they pushed him to think even bigger. Stan refused to create heroes who were only physically strong. He wanted heroes who fought battles inside their own hearts. That idea led to characters who were unlike anything readers had experienced. The X-Men didn't just fight villains, they fought prejudice. They represented every person who had ever felt rejected, different, or misunderstood. The Incredible Hulk wasn't just a monster. He represented the anger that lives inside every human being. Iron Man wasn't born a hero. He was a man trapped by fear, regret, and the consequences of his own choices. Stan understood something most storytellers didn't. People don't remember characters because they're perfect. They remember them because they remind us of ourselves. That's why Marvel's stories weren't only about saving the world. They were about saving hope, saving courage, saving the belief that even broken people can become extraordinary. But while Marvel's universe was becoming stronger, Stan Lee's own life was about to face challenges that no comic book could prepare him for. And the next chapter of his journey would test not his creativity, but his character.
By the 1970s, Stan Lee had become one of the most recognized names in comics. But he wasn't satisfied with selling comic books. He had a much bigger dream. He wanted the entire world to respect superheroes. At the time, many people still believed comic books were childish. Teachers dismissed them. Parents often threw them away. Critics laughed at them. But Stan saw something different. He believed stories could inspire people, no matter their age. So he became more than a writer. He became Marvel's greatest ambassador. He traveled across America, visited schools, attended comic conventions, spoke to thousands of fans. He treated every reader with respect. Whether someone was 8 years old or 80, Stan never acted like he was above his audience. He listened, he smiled, he signed comics for hours without complaining, because he never forgot something important. Without the fans, there is no success. As the years passed, Hollywood finally began paying attention. The heroes that publishers once called too risky were now becoming movies, television shows, video games, global icons. One by one, Spider-Man swung onto the big screen. The X-Men amazed audiences. Iron Man shocked the world. Captain America inspired millions. The Avengers united an entire generation of movie lovers. What began as a small comic book company had become one of the greatest entertainment empires in history. And every time fans watched those unforgettable scenes, they were witnessing the power of one man's refusal to quit. Stan Lee often appeared in those movies for just a few seconds. A bus driver,
A security guard, a barber, a delivery man. Tiny roles, but they meant everything. When audiences saw him on screen, the theater erupted with applause. Because those cameos weren't just funny moments. They were reminders that behind every superhero was a dreamer who almost walked away before his dream ever came true. And yet, the greatest lesson of Stan Lee's life wasn't hidden inside Marvel. It was hidden inside the hardships that continued to follow him even after achieving worldwide fame.
Success changed Stan Lee's life, but it never changed who he was. Even after becoming famous across the world, he continued reminding people anyone can create something extraordinary. He wasn't saying that because life had become easy. Life never became easy. Over the years, Stan faced criticism, business disagreements, personal losses, and painful moments that no amount of fame could erase. In 2017, the person who had stood beside him through decades of struggle, his beloved wife Joan, passed away. For nearly 70 years, she had been his greatest supporter. The woman who once told him, "If you're going to quit anyway, write the story you truly believe in." Without those words, the Marvel Universe might never have existed. Her loss left an emptiness that no success could fill. Yet Stan continued meeting fans. He continued smiling. He continued inspiring millions, because he understood something that every successful person eventually learns. Life isn't measured by how long you live. It's measured by how many lives you touch. On November 12, 2018, Stan Lee passed away at the age of 95. Around the world, millions of people paused. Actors, artists, writers, children, parents, people who had never met him felt like they had lost a friend. Not because he was a celebrity, but because his stories had helped them through difficult times. Some found courage in Spider-Man. Some found confidence in Iron Man. Some found hope in the X-Men. Others simply believed that if ordinary people could become heroes, maybe they could too.
Marvel movies have earned billions of dollars. Its characters are recognized in almost every country on Earth. But Stan Lee's greatest achievement was never the money. It was never the awards. It was never the fame. His greatest achievement was changing the way people see themselves. He proved that heroes don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be fearless. They don't have to be born special. A hero is simply someone who refuses to give up. Think about his journey. A young man born into poverty, working small jobs no one respected, rejected for years, ready to quit. One conversation, one decision, one act of believing in himself changed history forever. How many dreams disappear, not because they are impossible, but because people quit one step too early? How many future inventors, artists, entrepreneurs, and leaders walk away just before their breakthrough? Stan Lee's story gives us the answer. Your biggest opportunity may arrive after your biggest disappointment. Your greatest creation may come after your darkest moment. And the dream you think is too late may be the one that changes the world. So if today you're struggling, if people don't believe in you, if success feels impossibly far away, remember Stan Lee. Remember the man who almost quit. Remember the writer who ignored the critics. Remember the dreamer who chose courage over comfort. Because your story isn't over yet. The next chapter could be the one that changes everything. As Stan Lee loved to say, Excelsior. Not just a word, but a way of living. Always moving forward, always climbing higher, always believing that the best is still ahead. Thank you for listening, and never forget, the world doesn't need another copy of someone else. It needs the story that only you can write.